Most people think psychological warfare only exists in battlefields, in intelligence agencies, or in high-level power struggles. But the truth is far more unsettling. Psychological warfare is not something happening far away from you. It's happening around you every single day. Not through violence, not through force, but through subtle emotional pressure, invisible influence, and silent control. And the most disturbing part is that most people don't even realize it's happening to them. Because when psychological warfare is done correctly, it doesn't feel like control. It feels like your own decision. In this video, I'm not here to teach you how to control others. I'm here to show you something far more powerful: how to recognize when your mind is being influenced without your awareness. Because once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. You'll begin to notice how conversations shift your emotions, how certain people create pressure without saying anything directly, and how your own thoughts are sometimes not entirely your own. By the end of this, you will understand something most people never fully grasp: how psychological warfare operates silently inside everyday human interactions, and more importantly, how to protect your mind from it. Psychological warfare is not always aggressive, and it doesn't always look like manipulation in the way people imagine. In reality, it's much quieter. It operates through attention, emotion, and perception. If someone can control what you focus on, they can influence how you feel. And if they influence how you feel, they begin to shape how you interpret reality. And once your interpretation changes, your decisions follow naturally without any force. This is why psychological warfare is so powerful, because it works with your mind, not against it. Human beings like to believe they are rational, but most decisions are made emotionally first and logically justified later. This means your emotions are the gateway, and whoever understands that understands how to influence behavior. The first layer of psychological warfare is emotional activation, because your brain is designed to react faster to emotion than logic. Fear, guilt, validation, and rejection are not just feelings, they are control points. When someone triggers these emotions in you, your brain shifts into a reactive state, and in that moment, you're not thinking clearly. You're trying to resolve the feeling. And that's where influence happens, not through arguments, but through emotional pressure. You can see this clearly in everyday situations. At work, someone might say, "I guess I'll just handle this alone." And even though it sounds harmless, it creates silent pressure, making you feel responsible or even guilty. And without being asked directly, you step in. In relationships, instead of arguing, someone may withdraw completely. No explanation, no confrontation, just silence. And suddenly you feel anxious, confused, and responsible for fixing everything. In friendships, a simple statement like, "I thought you cared more than that," is not really a request. It's a psychological trigger that activates self-doubt, and now you're not responding logically. You're responding emotionally. The reason this works goes deeper than the situation itself. It's rooted in subconscious conditioning. Since childhood, you've been taught patterns like be polite, don't disappoint others, avoid conflict, and seek approval, and over time, these patterns become automatic. You don't think about them, you react through them. So when someone triggers guilt or emotional discomfort, your mind doesn't pause to question it. It responds instantly, not because you're weak, but because your brain is following a learned program. Another powerful force behind psychological warfare is the fear of rejection. Humans are wired for connection, and being excluded or ignored feels like a threat to the brain. So what happens is that you adjust your behavior to maintain acceptance. You say yes when you want to say no, you agree when you feel uncomfortable, and you stay silent when you should speak. Not because you lack intelligence, but because your brain is trying to protect your place in the social environment. There is also something important that most people overlook. Many people who create psychological pressure are not even aware of what they are doing. When someone feels insecure, they might use guilt. When someone feels uncertain, they might withdraw. And when someone feels powerless, they might try to influence others indirectly. It's not always calculated manipulation. Sometimes it's simply emotional survival. And understanding this changes how you see people, because you begin to realize that not all pressure comes from bad intentions. If you break this process down, psychological warfare operates through attention control, emotional activation, interpretation shift, and behavioral response. First, your attention is directed towards something. Then your emotions are triggered. Then your mind interprets the situation based on that emotion. And finally, your behavior follows that interpretation. This entire process happens in seconds. And without awareness, you don't even notice it. You just feel something and act on it. So the real question is, how do you protect yourself from something so subtle? The answer is not becoming cold or mistrusting everyone, but developing awareness in real time. Start noticing moments when you feel sudden guilt without a clear reason, when you feel pressured to respond quickly, when your emotions rise before your thoughts, or when your yes comes automatically. In those moments, pause, even if it's just for a second, and ask yourself, am I reacting or am I choosing? That single question creates a gap between influence and response, and in that gap, you regain control. The first skill is emotional awareness, not suppressing your feelings, but observing them. Because when you can see the emotion clearly, it stops controlling you automatically. The second skill is clear communication, because most psychological pressure thrives in confusion and indirect expression. And when communication is clear, there is less room for emotional manipulation. The third skill is internal stability, because when your sense of self is strong, external pressure has less impact. You don't feel the need to please everyone, and you don't fear disagreement. There is a deeper truth that most people never fully accept, and that is that we are all influenced constantly. No one is completely independent in their thinking, but awareness changes everything, because once you see the patterns, they lose their invisibility. And once they lose invisibility, they lose their power. When you understand this, you stop taking things personally. You realize that people are often just trying to manage their own emotions, and instead of reacting blindly, you begin to observe and understand. Psychological warfare is not always loud. It doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it feels like guilt. And sometimes it hides inside normal conversations. But once you become aware of it, you can never go back to not seeing it. Awareness creates distance, and that distance gives you control, not over others, but over yourself. And that is the most powerful form of control that exists. If this made you see human behavior differently, take a moment to reflect on it. And if you want to explore more of these hidden psychological patterns, consider subscribing, because the more you understand the mind, the less it can be influenced without your awareness. And I'd really like to know your thoughts. Have you ever experienced this kind of silent influence in your life? Let me know in the comments.